I want you to close your eyes for a second. Imagine a beautiful, peaceful palace.
Yeah, we are talking gleaming white marble.
Exactly. White marble that actually glows like silver when the sun sets. It sits in this lush valley surrounded by golden fields, gentle rivers, and, prosperous people living in total harmony. It is a true sanctuary.
Right.
But now I want you to imagine that perfection suddenly and violently corrupted by an otherworldly evil. The walls crumble, a freezing wind kills the crops, and a sinister, blood-red glow surrounds the entire structure.
It just traps everyone inside.
Yeah, twisting the very architecture into an absolute nightmare. Welcome to today's deep dive.
It is quite the hook to throw someone into, I have to say. That drastic shift from absolute serenity to chaotic horror sets a very specific, deeply unsettling tone for anyone walking through those palace doors. You aren't just exploring a ruin, you're walking through an active crime scene.
And today we are heading right through those doors. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the classic adventure module, Palace of the Silver Princess.
That's a classic.
It really is. But we aren't just skimming the overarching plot here. We are zooming all the way in on part 3. That is Dungeon Level 1, specifically encounters 13 through 20. Our goal today is to unpack exactly how environmental storytelling, psychological traps, and highly specific ecological details come together to create a masterclass in world building. What makes this particular stretch of room so compelling?
Well, to set the stage for you, you really have to understand the broader context of what happened to this peaceful valley of Haven.
Right, because the sudden corruption wasn't an accident.
No, not at all. It was caused by an artifact known as the Eye of Eric. This is a massive magical ruby, roughly the size of an apple, that the local dwarves found. They actually gifted it to the beloved Princess Argenta.
Which was a terrible mistake.
Catastrophic mistakes.
Right.
What they didn't know was that this ruby is the literal eye of an ancient, evil being of immense power named Eric of the Hundred Eyes. He was banished to a prison dimension centuries ago.
But he found a loophole.
Exactly. He managed to send this eye across the dimensional barriers to start claiming Haven for himself. The ruby has fundamentally warped the palace, turning innocent, functional rooms into incredibly deadly puzzles.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with what should be the most relaxing place in any palace.
The spa.
The spa! We are walking into encounters 13 and 14, and the contrast between what the space was built for and what it has actually become is just fascinating.
It really plays with your expectations. When you walk into room 13, the sunken bath, you are greeted by deceptive luxury.
I mean, it is a hexagonal room, right?
Yeah, and the sunken bath itself is carved from white marble, veined with black and gold. The walls are lavishly decorated with gorgeous murals of water nymphs, ponds with long reeds, hunters stalking water birds. There's even a large peacock feather fan sitting in the corner.
They really want you to feel safe.
The designer desperately wants you to let your guard down.
It sounds like a premium retreat. It feels like the kind of room where players would want to take a breath and maybe heal up, but I am guessing the spa day is canceled.
Very much canceled. Because while you were taking in the white marble and admiring the nymphs, an ambush drops from the ceiling.
Of course it does.
Hiding right above the bath are 5 bird-like creatures. The text describes them as resembling small, feathered anteaters because of their long, rigid noses.
Feathered anteaters.
Yeah, these are sturges.
I have to admit, that sounds almost endearing until you realize what a giant magical mosquito is actually trying to do to you.
Endearing is definitely not the word I would use. They are terrifying in practice. When the sturge attacks, it isn't trying to bludgeon you or slice you with claws.
It wants your blood.
Exactly. It thrusts that long, beak-like nose into your body to siphon your blood. The moment it hits, it latches on, and it just stays there. It rapidly drains your vitality, dealing 1 to 3 points of damage every single round until either it is dead or you are.
That is brutal.
And because they launch themselves from the ceiling with incredible speed, they actually get a +2 bonus on that initial strike. It is a fast, draining, panic-inducing ambush that forces players into a desperate race against the clock.
That utterly shatters the serene illusion of the bathhouse. Suddenly you aren't admiring nymphs. You are frantically trying to pull giant bloodsuckers off your friends.
It's a rude awakening.
For sure. But let's say a party survives that ordeal. Is there any reward for their trouble?
There is, and it rewards thoroughness. Down in the corner of the room, there are 7 flasks.
Let me guess. Poison.
Not quite. Now, 6 of those are just scented bath oils in different colors. Very thematic, but practically useless. However, The seventh flask is a magical potion that allows the drinker to read minds.
Oh, a potion of ESP.
Exactly. It's a great little prize hidden right in plain sight.
I love that kind of detail. But the danger in this area is far from over. Right next door is room 14, the pink pedestal. And from what I understand, visually, this room is extremely stark compared to the lavish bathhouse next door.
It is a profound shift in design. You walk in, and the very first thing you notice is a 5-foot-tall pink marble pedestal in the dead center of the room.
Just sitting there?
Right. And any light entering the space catches the gleam of a small silver object sitting right on top of it. A silver pendant on a delicate chain. The rest of the room is entirely empty.
Which immediately makes the pendant an object of intense curiosity. It's the classic shiny object in an empty room. But there is a catch, isn't there?
A very explicit one. The room actually has a built-in warning system. If you get within 1 foot of the pedestal, a green glow suddenly surrounds it.
Oh, wow.
And in the midst of that glow, the transparent, ghostly face of a green man appears. This is one of the protectors, the magical beings who used to guard Haven.
And what does he do?
He simply looks at you, warns, beware,
Hmm.
and then vanishes along with the green glow. It is a crystal clear line in the sand.
Wait, so if a magical ghost literally manifests to tell you to back off, why would any player actually keep going and touch the pendant? What is the psychological hook there?
It preys entirely on the forbidden button syndrome. In early role-playing games, players were conditioned to believe that the most dangerous traps guarded the best loot.
Ah, of course.
A ghost telling you to stay away often translates in a player's mind to, this item is incredibly powerful, and the game is trying to scare me away from it.
Reverse psychology applied to a dungeon crawl. I love it. But what happens if they do ignore the warning and snatch the pendant?
The trap is horrific.
Oh.
The moment you touch the silver pendant, you hear hysterical laughter seemingly echoing from the metal itself. The game forces you to test your mental fortitude against a powerful spell. You have to save versus spells.
And if you fail?
If your willpower fails, your character is driven permanently insane.
Permanently.
Yes, and it's a very specific tragic type of madness. It's suicidal bravery. From that moment on, you will constantly charge into deadly battles, totally fearless, refusing to retreat, accompanied the whole time by your own hysterical laughter.
That is deeply unsettling. It is not just taking damage. It is losing control of your own character's survival instinct. Where does an item like that even come from?
That is where the environmental storytelling really shines. This silver pendant originally belonged to an alchemist named Silverheart. He worked in a laboratory on the second level of the palace. When the Eye of Erech began its corruption, it drove Silverheart mad. He was in the middle of a volatile experiment, and the resulting explosion destroyed an entire section of the upper floor.
Killing him instantly, I assume.
Yes. The only thing that survived the blast was this pendant, which contained a fragment of his shattered spirit. The evil influence of Erech seized that magic and teleported the pendant down to this pink pedestal.
Wow.
Yeah, turning a tragic accident into a malicious snare for the overly curious.
That is so grim. The dungeon didn't just spawn a trap, it weaponized a local tragedy. This theme of psychological warfare seems to escalate as we move into the next area. Here's where it gets really interesting, because room 15, the mosaic room, feels like an entirely different kind of test.
It absolutely is. While the pedestal tested your impulse control, the mosaic room tests your logic, your memory, and your inventory management.
It's another hexagonal room, right?
Yes. But this one is covered entirely in intricate mosaic tiles. The walls, the floor, the ceiling. It is visually overwhelming.
And the scenes depicted in these mosaics are incredibly vibrant, too. On one wall, there's a man in heavy black plate armor riding a white dragon, with a young woman wearing a golden crown riding in front of him.
Right.
And another wall shows elves playing in a forest while a white dragon watches from hiding. Another shows mermaids frolicking in a bright blue pool. But the floor seems to be the focal point.
Yes, the mosaic on the floor is the key to the puzzle. It shows the crowned maiden, the knight in black armor, and the white dragon all fast asleep. And they are physically wrapped around a real keyhole set into the floor that glows with a strange blue-white light.
A real keyhole in a mosaic floor. That is wild.
And the logic here is incredibly strict. To progress, you need a key. But if you try to pick the lock, or if you use any key other than a very specific gold key found earlier in the dungeon, the room punishes you instantly.
And it is not a subtle punishment. A massive stone slab drops directly from the ceiling right over the keyhole,
dealing 2 to 12 points of damage to anyone unfortunate enough to be standing underneath it.
It forces players to actually pay attention to the items they have collected rather than just brute forcing their way through. But what happens when you do use the right gold key?
The puzzle shifts. A second keyhole magically appears on the east wall.
Mm.
You take that same gold key, place it into the new lock, and turn it. Instantly, the mosaics, the keyholes, and the key itself all vanish.
Just disappeared.
Gone. In their place, a long silvery sword appears, just floating in the air, glowing with bright blue-white light.
Okay, obviously you want the glowing floating sword. That is the ultimate dungeon crawler fantasy.
Naturally. But the second you reach out and make barehanded physical contact with it, the man in black plate armor from the mosaic suddenly manifests right beside the sword and attacks you.
Oh.
And he attacks with the power of a 10-hit dice monster.
10-hit dice.
Yes, in the context of this game, that is the equivalent of dropping a massive late-game boss on a group of rookies. It is designed to look like an absolute guaranteed party wipe.
Which would cause an immediate panic at the table. But there's a brilliant twist here.
What's fascinating here is the sheer audacity of the placebo effect being deployed. That terrifying Black Knight, he is a pure illusion.
But a really convincing one.
Incredibly convincing. If you try to fight it normally, it feels entirely real. If the illusion hits you in combat, your brain convinces your body that you have taken damage. You feel the pain.
That is wild.
And if the illusion does enough imaginary damage to kill you, you fall to the ground.
But you don't die.
Exactly. You merely fall into a deep sleep.
I can just imagine the roller coaster of emotions for a player. The sheer terror of thinking your character just got sliced in half, only to realize a few minutes later that they're just taking an aggressive nap on the dungeon floor.
It is brilliant design. The illusion vanishes on its own after 4 rounds, or instantly if a character is brave enough, or perhaps desperate enough, to just reach out and touch the knight with the bare hand, breaking the spell.
So once the illusion is gone, the true prize drops to the floor. The glowing sword is a genuinely powerful +1 magical weapon that casts 30 feet of its own light.
And lore-wise, it actually belongs to the trapped knight from the mosaics, Ellis the Strong. It is a phenomenal sequence that rewards courage under pressure.
It really is a cinematic moment. But after you claim the sword, the atmosphere takes a sharp turn. We are moving into encounters 16, 17, and 18, and the very structure of the environment changes dramatically.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this transition is crucial for the world building. We are leaving the finished, polished marble rooms of the palace proper. We are now stepping into raw, natural underground caverns.
A huge architectural shift.
Exactly. It signals to you that Eric's chaos isn't just a surface-level haunting affecting the building. It is a deep-rooted infection seeping into the bedrock, warping the natural world beneath the foundation.
It makes the whole dungeon feel organic and unpredictable. Room 16, the steam room, is a great example of messing with player expectations. You walk in, and the cavern is just filled with thick, hot mist. After the brutal traps we just survived, I would immediately assume the steam is acidic or poisonous.
Which is exactly what a cautious player should think. But surprisingly, it is just a natural geyser under the floor.
Just water.
Just hot water.
Yeah.
It is a brilliant pacing mechanism. The designer gives you a moment of harmless tension to let you catch your breath, simply because the natural geology of the cave system dictates there should be a hot spring here.
A rare moment of mercy, because room 17, the cavern temple, is where things get nasty again. You walk into this large cave where the floor and walls have been polished smooth, leading up to a raised platform.
But the desecration here is just heartbreaking.
It really is. There used to be beautiful statues of 3 gentle protectors kneeling before a veiled woman. Now, those statues have been violently smashed to rubble.
And sitting right in the middle of that wreckage is a crude clay statue of a giant eye, painted blood red.
It is a visceral, ugly display of Eric's dominance. He hasn't just moved into the basement. He is actively trying to erase the local religion and replace it with his own horrific iconography.
But beyond the narrative implications, there is a very real mechanical threat hidden in the rubble of those broken statues. A massive, highly venomous giant centipede has made a nest in the debris.
So how does a party deal with a threat they can't even see yet?
This is where we get a vital lesson in early dungeon survival methodology. If you walk up and start eagerly moving the rubble with your bare hands to see if there is any treasure underneath, you will disturb the centipede, and it will strike you with a venomous bite.
But if you play it smart.
If you are cautious and prod the rubble from a distance using a 10-foot pole or the butt of a spear, the centipede gets spooked by the sudden movement and just scurries right out of the room harmlessly.
The legendary 10-foot pole. It's such a trope in fantasy games, but this is exactly why it exists. The game actively rewards paranoia and punishes recklessness. Moving deeper into these natural caves, we hit Room 18, the underground pool. It's a cave mostly filled with fresh water. The only way forward is a treacherous, slippery little ledge running along the east wall, and it is incredibly narrow. Total single-file vulnerability.
And the ecology of this cave adds a wonderful layer of tension. Out in the middle of the water, there is a disturbance. Swimming toward you are three creatures that look like giant weasels.
Giant ferrets, right.
Yes, giant ferrets. What is brilliant about this encounter is that the text notes their unique ecological niche. They aren't monsters created by the Eye of Eric. They usually live in these underground rivers to hunt giant rats.
So they are a natural functioning part of this cave system's food chain.
Exactly.
That is fascinating. So they aren't inherently evil, they are just wildlife. But wildlife can still be dangerous, especially when you're balancing on a wet rock.
Precisely. The text explicitly notes that their tempers are highly unpredictable. If they take a dislike to your party, or if they feel threatened, they will absolutely coordinate an attack while you are completely exposed on that narrow ledge.
It's a natural hazard, untainted by magical corruption, but potentially lethal all the same.
And unpredictable.
And there's a really cool narrative boundary in this room, too. The freshwater pool is fed by a stream entering from the south. If you try to follow that stream looking for a back door out of the dungeon, you hit a dead end.
Blocked by the red glow.
Yes, the exact same sinister blood-red glow that surrounds the outside of the palace. It is a claustrophobic reminder that you are trapped in this bubble of corruption. And that brings us to our final two encounters, 19 and 20. I like to call these the pure environmental hazards.
That is an apt title, because here, the dungeon stops trying to trick your mind and starts physically assaulting your body. Room 19 is the green slime room.
You look inside, and except for the walls oozing with this vibrant green slime, the room appears completely empty.
And every instinct should scream at you to turn around and walk away.
Yeah.
But inevitably, someone always investigates the ooze.
And they usually pay a terrible price for it.
The mechanics of green slime are presented with a cold, terrifying brutality. It is an apex hazard. Green slime dissolves wood and metal incredibly fast. We are talking usually in just 6 rounds.
That is less than a minute.
It cannot dissolve stone, which is why it thrives on the cavern walls. But if a drop of it falls from the ceiling and touches bare flesh, it sticks instantly. And the clock starts ticking the moment it makes contact.
It's a countdown to a gruesome fate, isn't it?
It is pure body horror. You have 1 to 4 rounds before that slime begins to rapidly multiply and convert your living tissue into more green slime.
It is a terrifying way to lose a character. Not in glorious battle, but melting away in a damn cave.
And what gets me is the cure.
Right, because you can't just scrape it off with a dagger.
No, scraping it is absolutely useless. To stop the conversion process, the slime must be destroyed by fire. Extreme heat. In most cases, that means your friends have to literally set you on fire.
And the game does not pull its punches here.
Not at all. The text explicitly states that burning the green slime off causes half of that fire damage to the slime and the other half directly to the victim.
You have to willingly endure being burned alive just to survive being melted into ooze. It is a horrific choice, which perfectly sets up Room 20, the sulfur pool. This room asks a very direct question about how far a player is willing to push their luck.
It really does. You step into a small cave largely filled with a bubbling gray liquid. It is a natural water source, but the sulfur content is incredibly high.
This smell must be awful.
The smell is foul, but more importantly, the toxicity of the air is an immediate, invisible threat.
It is not a monster you can stab. The room itself is trying to kill you.
Exactly. Just standing in this cavern for 1 full turn will cause you to become dizzy and disoriented.
And if you stay longer.
If you refuse to leave, the toxic atmosphere begins degrading your health, dealing 1 point of damage every single round you remain inside. You are literally choking to death on the environment.
It is a brutal environmental hazard. But here is the ultimate risk versus reward scenario I want to pose to you, the listener. You are standing in this foul room. Your vision is blurring, your lungs are burning, and you are actively taking damage just by breathing.
The clock is ticking.
You look into the bubbling, gray, opaque pool, and at the bottom you spot a skeleton. And that skeleton is tightly clutching a leather bag.
A classic lure.
You know there is something in there. The game manual tells us exactly what it is. 133 gold pieces, and a beautiful silver wolf-headed ring with sapphire eyes worth a cool 300 gold
A
pieces.
small fortune.
So the question is, do you hold your breath, dive into the burning toxic sulfur, risking your life and your dwindling health to pry a bag of treasure from a dead adventurer who probably tried to do the exact same thing?
It is the perfect distillation of the dungeon crawling experience. The danger is explicit, the environment is undeniably hostile, and the reward is just sitting there, gleaming through the murky water, daring you to take the plunge.
So what does this all mean? We have gone from a beautiful sunken bath with blood-sucking ambush predators dropping from the ceiling to a mind-breaking silver pendant born of tragedy. We have navigated psychological illusions that trick your brain into thinking you are dead, and pure body horror ooze that forces you to set yourself on fire.
It has been a gauntlet.
This dungeon never lets you rest. It requires you to constantly radically adapt your thinking. A sword might solve the illusion room, but a sword will literally melt in your hands in the slime room.
The big takeaway here is that in a world of hidden dangers, whether it is a beautifully designed fantasy dungeon or our own modern landscape of information overload and complex decisions, your greatest tools for survival aren't brute strength. They are critical thinking, profound patience, and acute situational awareness. Every single trap and encounter we discussed was meticulously designed to prey on a specific human vulnerability. The Sturges prey on your assumption of safety. The pink pendant preys on your lack of impulse control. The mosaic illusion preys on your fear of inadequacy. And the sulfur pool preys directly on your greed. What stands out to you about how these imaginary spaces are constructed to test the limits of human nature?
It is a fascinating lens to view game design through. It is not just a test of statistics on a piece of paper. It is a fundamental test of character and psychology. And I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. We have talked a lot about the anxiety, the stress, and the brutal choices these rooms force upon the people exploring them. But think about the context of the space itself.
Oh, that is interesting.
The Eye of Eric didn't just populate the palace with monsters. It actively subverted the history and function of the space. It turned a place of healing, like the spa, into a deadly trap, and a chapel into a shrine of evil. Think about the spaces in your own life. How much of your comfort relies on the context of a room? And how entirely different would a familiar space feel if its fundamental purpose was suddenly inverted by an outside force? It is something to think about the next time you sit down to play a game, or even just walk into your living room.
That is a chilling thought to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the corrupted halls of Haven. We warmly invite you to return for our next exploration. Until then, stay curious, always check the swelling, and maybe think twice before picking up any floating, glowing swords.